Hello, my name is George Cairns, and in this video lesson I'm going to show you how to use the new adaptive wide angle command to correct various lens distortions, kicking off with the perspectival distortion we have in this start image here. It's called perspective before, and we're going to end up with a shot that looks like this, with the verticals running vertical with the edge of the frame rather than converging in towards the center. So once you've opened your start image, let's pop up to Filter, and we're going to go down to the new Adaptive Wide Angle command in Photoshop CS6, and that opens up a new interface like so. The first thing you need to do is work out what kind of correction you want to do, and here we're going to change this from Auto to Perspective. Now we can grab this tool here, which is the Constraint tool, and we can click to place a point at the top, a point at the bottom, and as you can see we're dragging and drawing down the side there, and it's curving to follow the lines of the tilted building. But when we click here, it's going to try and straighten them, and you can see it's warping the edge of the frame a little bit there. I can place another point here, click, place again, and you can see it's curving to follow the lines of the building again, and that's because there's a lens profile here that recognizes which make and model of lens we're using, and also the focal length and crop factor used to capture the shot. So there's our second line. Now we can place another two in the middle here, click, and then click again just to follow the pillars. It will try and straighten those out, and then click, and click again one more time to follow that pillar there. Once we've created our four constraint lines, you can click to target them. You get some control handles here. You can reposition these points if you like. You can click and drag to rotate and try and straighten the line manually like so. We want about 90 degrees. It's sometimes quite hard to get a perfect 90 degrees, so what you can do is shift click on the line. You get this little icon here, and that will then try and get it running exactly parallel with the frame. And if you get a 90-degree line, it will go purple like this, and it's a nice vertical line. Shift click again on this one. Once you see that little icon with the little eyedropper and the plus sign, shift again, and we're now straightening those converging verticals and making them run parallel with the edge of the frame. So that's a pretty good job. We now have some curves along the top here. We can continue using this tool by clicking, and as it's again profiling the lens, it knows that there's a curve on the lens, so you can see the line is curving automatically. But when I let go, it will then automatically try and straighten that out. And again, I can shift click here and get it running perfectly parallel with the bottom of the frame, and it's turning orange to show us that it's happy. And that's much easier than just dragging this rotate line to try and get it manually running parallel. Again, we need a constraint along the bottom. You can see it's curving and warping due to lens distortion. So if I click here and let go, it's starting to straighten out again. Shift click if you like, and that will then make it even more perfectly horizontal. I've just jumped forward a little bit and added a few more constraints just to straighten out these verticals here and the horizontals at the top. And you can see a mesh that shows you the type of distortion the lens is giving you, but that doesn't really help you when it comes to fixing things, so I tend to turn that off. It's rather distracting as well. And we can also scale this down a little bit to around about 86%, just so we can see more of the edge of the frame. So there's our perspectival distortion fixed, and let's just add one more constraint along the bottom here just to try and straighten this warping foreground. And again, I'm going to shift click to straighten that out more specifically. Now I'm going to click OK to apply the adaptive wide angle to the image, and you can see that it's much better, and it looks now like the building looks in real life rather than warping and tilting inwards towards the top of the frame. There we go, and as you can see, we've got lots of transparent edges around the frame, so all I'm going to do here is grab the crop tool and then just click and drag in to crop out most of those transparent areas, but making sure that we keep the top of the image. So I'm just going to click down here, just bring it in at the bottom there, and that should pretty much do the trick. I can see from my grid that it's fairly evenly balanced, nice and symmetrical. I'm just going to hit return to apply the crop. Now for something much more impressive, if you open up Fisheye before, we're going to turn this shot into this shot here and straighten up these warped lines and the converging verticals. And to do that, we're going to pop up, of course, to Filter and choose the trusty Adaptive Wide Angle Filter. And that will open up in the new window, and we'll then change it from Correction Auto to Correction Fisheye, like so. Now I can use the zoom tool to get a closer look at my image, and then the spacebar helps me move around inside it. And if we click here to choose this tool here, it's called the polygonal constraint tool, and if you click and then place points, you can create 4 separate corners around the edge of a complete object like this pillar. You can see it's curving to follow that. Click to place the last point on the first, and it will automatically then try and straighten it out like so. We can do the same to this one here and work our way through the pillars and then just make our polygonal constraints. Last point on the first, and again we've straightened that one up now in just a tick. You can do the same with these two pillars here, and then as you move over and hold shift, you can see this icon appear. Click, and it will then make it run parallel with the edge of the frame like so. You need to do the same with all of them, so click here to select this one. I'm just choosing one line on each pillar. The one on the left seems to be an appropriate one, and slowly but surely we're working our way through and straightening out these pillars until they're running parallel with the edge of the frame. And you can see we've got a warped horizon there as well, so I'm going to try and straighten the shoreline first of all by grabbing this tool here, the constraint tool, clicking and then drawing a nice curved line to follow the line of the shore. You might find it doesn't quite work properly, so when you click to place the second point, you'll then get a control point in the middle, and you can push that up just to help it follow the curve of the shoreline, and that will then straighten it more effectively. And by shift clicking on the line, you can make it run parallel with the edge of the frame. I've added another line to the distant horizon, and there we have our corrected vertical and horizontal lines, and we've got rid of all the warps as well. So I'm going to click OK to apply my adaptive wide angle filter, and then we're going to just crop the image to fine tune the composition. Before we crop, let's try and fill these transparent edges a little bit. So grab the magic wand and then just untick contiguous, click to make a selection. You can see the transparency has been selected. Go to select, modify, and then just expand it by a pixel so it's overlapping the actual pixels of the image. And then you can try going to edit and choosing fill, and then in comes the content aware option here, which is new in CS5, CS6. Click OK, and it will try and extend it based on the pixels in the image. So that's a cool way certainly of filling the sky and some of the patterns here in the foreground. It's done a fairly good job with certain areas. Some are a bit more complicated, so press Ctrl D to deselect, and then you can always grab the crop tool and start to crop out some of those problem areas, and then just get the composition looking a lot better. You can always use the clone stamp as well to tidy things up. I'm going to go in quite tight. Something like that should do the trick. There's a little bit of cloning needing done at the bottom here. It's not quite worked perfectly, but that's a cool way of filling transparent edges quite quickly using content aware technology. Hit return to apply the change, and then Z, right click, fit on screen. I'm just going to press S for the clone stamp, or click to sample some of these stones here. Just click and spray over that slight join that we have just to finish things off.